Welcome to Threads of Sustainability, where you get to hear the passionate, informative, and engaging conversations of creatives, makers, manufacturers, and producers from all over the globe. We explore what sustainability can look like in the quilting, fiber, and textile world, and I'm your host, Bridget O'Flaherty, also known as the Sustainable Quilter. Hi, welcome to this week's episode of Threads of Sustainability. I am Bridget. I want to thank you for listening because it's been a year that I have been working away here at Threads of Sustainability at this podcast. And in that year, we've done 31 episodes and we've had growth that I never expected. And I've talked to people I've been so excited to talk to, and I have made new friends, learned a ton, and it's been a pretty exciting year for me. And I hope it has been for you as well. I decided this time I would connect with Jasper again, and he and I could have a recap of the year and have some conversations around the different things that have happened over the last year. So sit back, grab a cup of coffee, and have a listen to Jasper and I have some chit chats. These are the kinds of conversations that Jasper and I have on a pretty regular basis. So it was kind of fun to capture it into a podcast episode. Anyway, I hope you enjoy. Hi, Jasper.
Hi.
I'm so glad to have you here again. I like that I do these recaps with you every once in a while, just because it's a nice way to have a connection with you, for one thing.
Yeah.
But it's also just, I don't know, it feels like it's like bookending my podcast by having these wrap-ups with you.
Yeah, it's a nice little place to come back to and reflect and, I don't know, think about it from a broader perspective rather than focusing on one topic.
Yeah, and it's a little bit like me getting interviewed instead of me doing the interviews, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. So how many episodes have you done over the last year?
So yeah, it's like this is coming up on the 1 year. Well, I think it is the 1 year anniversary. And this episode's going to be airing while I'm at Quilt Canada, which is pretty awesome because a year ago at Quilt Canada, I only had like 1 or 2 episodes in. So I was still figuring a lot of stuff out. So it's kind of a neat way to be capping the podcast. So I got 30 episodes in. By the time this one comes out, it'll be 31. So that's, nice. It feels like every other week it's enough. And I feel like it's a good pace for me. And I don't know. I don't think I could do more, for one thing.
Not yet.
But I don't think it needs more necessarily. It's just, it's a good way of kind of approaching the information every other week. It's consistent. And yeah, so sure. 30 episodes.
Yeah, that's impressive. But I wonder how many you'll get to.
I don't know. I'm going to keep doing it as long as I keep finding interesting people to talk to. And so far, I found a lot of interesting people. And there's some really cool stuff coming also over this next year. I've got some really interesting folks that I've been connecting with.
Awesome. And yeah, maybe you've inspired people to go off and do things and you'll interview them in the future too.
Yeah, wouldn't that be cool? Somebody who heard the podcast and then started doing stuff and then became a guest on the podcast. That would be very cool. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome. So who in this past year has been the most memorable podcast? Like who made an impression on you?
There's a lot of people made impressions on me. Vanessa Grenier from the Quilts for Survivors was a really significant one. That made a huge impact on me. But also a local artist, Rose Moses, that was a huge impact for me. She's an Indigenous artist and she does do quilting. She does doll making. She paints chairs. She does all kinds of art. And I got to go to her farm and it was super cool to go to her farm and see all the things she does. I don't know if she sleeps. I don't think she sleeps. But what was really interesting and really impactful about that visit was she showed me some of the work she does when she goes into schools working with kids, with students around Indigenous stories and Indigenous contexts of colonization and survivors of residential schools. And she showed me some of her poetry and some of the artworks that she's made around that poetry of dealing with generational trauma. And it was just really moving that she invited me into that space and was willing to share some of those stories with me in such a very personal way. And I really, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with textiles and sustainability, but it does have a lot to do with our community and understanding the legacies we've got in our communities.
Well, yeah, that's definitely a very close personal experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it'd be hard to get that doing remote interviews the way that you do with most
yeah it's true, I guess. Being in person, and I did another one that was in person as well in Vancouver with Maywa, and got to meet with Charlotte Kwan, and that was super cool because she and I were able to talk about her business and the work that they do around supporting farmers and artisans in India around that sustainable piece, for not only for the agricultural piece, for creating organic materials and organic dyes, but also the artisans that are creating the works and some of the different projects they've got going on around these different communities and supporting them in sustainable ways. So again, it was this really intimate conversation we got to have. Being in person, those, I think those ones were actually the most significant for me because I was able to have that face-to-face conversation. But that doesn't mean that the remote interviews aren't as interesting.
Doesn't diminish them.
No, not at all. But it just really was very impactful having those moments with those folks.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How many listeners does your podcast have?
Well, it's really obviously grown because it just started a year ago, and it was an organic, slow growth. But to date, I've had about 7,000 listens, downloads over the year, and about 1,200 to 1,500 every month in the last few months. So that's been pretty big growth over just the last few months.
Yeah. Wow.
And it's really exciting to know and to think that there's about 1,200 people out there in the world interested in what I'm sharing with them and interested in the stories that are out there around sustainability and textiles.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah.
And having that many people listening to the podcast, what was your most engaged episode?
It's hard to say. There's a couple that are sort of on the same level, really had the same number of downloads, and Zach Foster was a big one. Having Zach come on the podcast was really great. It was a really interesting conversation. He's well known in the space of quilting and doing mindful quilting, and he does a lot around sustainability as well with upcycling and repurposing. And he's got an online community where it explores all of that stuff. So he's got a pretty big following already. So having him on there was really a very interesting conversation. So that one was really popular. Also, the Quilts for Survivors episode was a very popular episode. And Krista Henneberry was one of my most recent ones. And she's out in Vancouver, well, in BC, she's on Bowen Island. And she started doing her own kind of exploration around upcycling and recycling and natural dyeing and doing slow stitching projects, just in a very purposeful way for her own self, her own creativity. And she shared a lot of that story with me. So that one was really interesting as well. And it's had a lot of downloads, a lot of interest as well. And one of the other episodes was with Graham Stewart. And Graham Stewart was talking about Fiber 52, which is a new processing method for more sustainable cotton, so that it's not using nearly as much energy, not using nearly as much water, and not having to spend as much time in chemical baths and lowering the thresholds, like using different chemicals that require lower temperatures or can be treated at lower temperatures to be able to treat the fibers to accept dyes in a way that is more sustainable. So
that's really cool.
Yeah. So he was a really cool interview, just to hear some of the different innovations that are going on in the industry before it even gets to somebody who's making it, doing making and producing. this is pre-consumer work that's being done to help reduce the footprint of cotton and of material production. So
that's really cool. And where is that being done?
He's down in the States. So
okay.
He's down and I can't remember where he is. So
I'll have to listen to the episode to learn more about it.
Yeah, if you listen to the episode, he talks about where he's from. But he's actually from Huddersfield, which is where my family is from over in England.
Oh, neat.
And he grew up in a textile industry. Like that whole area, that whole region of Manchester, Lancashire area was really well known for being a textile. That's where all the mills were, the wool mills and the cotton mills, and the dye houses were all there. So he grew up next to a dye house and became a master dyer. And so that's where he learned about the industry in the first place. So yeah, that was a super interesting conversation as well.
Yeah, the podcast has clearly led you to some really interesting connections with people.
Yeah, it's not just, I mean, I love talking to the different artists to see what they're doing in their practice and how they're changing what they do in terms of sustainability. But I really love talking to some of the different industry people. And I got to talk with some of the different organizations. Like I talked with the Global Organic Textile Standard, which was an amazing conversation, talking about what they do over the industry, trying to raise the bar on organic textiles. So not just organic cotton, but there's lots of other materials that can go through that organic labeling, but they have to meet certain criteria in order to get the GOTS labeling. And they're really raising the bar, and it's really grown exponentially over the last decade. So they're now actually have measurable impact on the industry. They're starting to have a measurable amount of cotton that is organic cotton. And they can actually say, 1% of all cotton is now organic cotton. And 10 years ago, they couldn't even put a number on it. It was a drop in the bucket. But now it's growing, and that's super exciting.
Yeah, that is really exciting.
Yeah.
How do you think you've made an impact on the textile industry, however small it may be?
I don't know. I'd love to think that I'm making an impact on the textile industry, but I think what I am doing is helping the average person understand, first of all, how much power they have to make a difference in the industry, to start asking for changes, if they're going into a quilt store or a fabric store, or they're going to find materials for their next project, to be thinking about how they might be able to have sustainable materials in their next project, whether that means they're shopping their own stash first, or they're doing trading with other folks that are in the industry, or they're upcycling or recycling in some way. Or if they're going to go to new materials, then they know the words to ask for. They know what they're looking for now in terms of sustainable materials that they can ask for at their local stores. The more we ask those local stores to bring in those materials, they go to their distributors go to their producers. So they actually have a lot of power in that voice. And so I think that's where my role is to start getting the information out to the average person so that they can start making different decisions in what they do.
Yeah, that sounds great.
That's what I hope anyway.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's really happening, but I think it's happening.
That's what you want to do, I think.
Yeah.
That sounds like a very good thing to pursue, and it sounds like you're very passionate about it, and that's...
Yeah, well, and I've
been dedicating yourself to. So.
Yeah, and I've gotten a lot of feedback from folks that are listening, and they have a lot of questions, and there's a lot of... So these are some of the conversations that come up around... Okay, well, I want to be sustainable, and I want to go maybe thrift and look for materials that I can use that are upcycled materials. But I'm nervous of taking away from somebody who needs, like if they go into a thrift store and they look at large men's shirts and they go in, then they're worried about taking away materials that somebody in that community might need.
Right.
And I think that that's totally valid. Like we have all of these different things coming at us of, no, you have to do it this way, or what about this way? What about this way? And so you're always kind of questioning yourself and going, am I doing the right thing? Am I making the right decision here? Like I want to be better, but who am I taking away from when I make that decision? And I think, first of all, the fact that you're asking that question means that we're making thoughtful purchases and thoughtful decisions around what we're doing, which is exactly what we should be doing. And second of all, there's no shortage of the amount of
No.
textiles that are in these recycle reuse centers. Like there are only about 30% of what goes into these reuse centers actually ever makes it to the floor. The rest of it is just too much. Like they end up sending stuff out to be bulk sent out to basically out of our country into other countries for resale as garments in other countries. And then we've lost the ability to track where it goes after that.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Textile waste is one of the worst hidden.
Oh my God. It's horrific.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's horrific. And I've learned so much about that over this last year as well. And there's so much more for me to still learn and still dive into to understand. Like every country's different too, right? And so I'm trying to figure out all of those different standards, those different processes, and those different ways that textiles are managed in these different countries and different regions. You know, the EU treats it one way, the US treats it another way, Canada treats it another way. And it's really hard to know where things are landing. Like there's not a lot being done in Canada. There's a lot more being done in the US around textile upcycling and recycling of textiles. That's a huge piece.
Yeah. Well, and part of that is because of the higher population, I would assume.
I guess,
and
yeah.
the connectivity between city centers and
Yeah, I guess that has a lot to do with it. And
Canada is much more fragmented in that sense, where those kind of systems are harder to set up in smaller, isolated areas.
Yeah, I guess that's probably a good reason for it not being as evident and obvious in Canada. We have reuse centers where a lot of donated clothing goes to, or donated materials. There's a couple of different organizations in Vancouver that do what's called dead stock resale. So that's a pre-consumer thing, that if a garment company is deciding to make garments out of a certain material, they often order too much, and the offcuts then go to these dead stock stores to sell as a resale. But so it's never been sewn into anything, and it's never been actually used, but it's this extra fabric that's kicking around. And that it's problematic in some ways too, because really then we're encouraging a market, a commodification of a product that shouldn't exist in the first place. So it's always so tricky, trying to balance all of these different ways. And I think it's an ever evolving process. Sustainability is ever evolving. There's no one right path. And that's the one big takeaway for me over the last year, is that there's no one right way. I don't have a checklist. If you do these 5 things, you will be sustainable. I don't have that checklist. And there are so many people doing different parts of sustainability. And I think that's what we have to do, basically, right? As individuals, figure out what works for us.
Yeah.
I think the big part about that is really finding what works for you and rolling with that, and not worrying too much that you aren't doing enough, or that you can't do all of it, or that you might be doing this wrong, or you might be doing that wrong. There isn't a magic formula. Hey everyone, it's Bridget, the Sustainable Quilter. I wanted to let you know about the Green Stitchers Hive. It's our brand new online community. It's a welcoming space where we can connect, share knowledge and resources, and support each other in our journey towards sustainable textile practices, whatever that means to you: quilting, weaving, knitting, felting, anything. Inside the Hive, we have workshops, monthly challenges, live Q&A sessions, live lectures with guest speakers, and opportunities to connect with other like-minded people. You can access the Green Stitchers Hive on my website at bridgeto'flaherty.com. Can't wait to see you there.
No, exactly. And you can't get hung up on the small details. It's eco-overwhelm. You've talked about that before, where
Yeah, and it shuts you down from doing anything because you feel like you can't contribute properly because for some reason we think that we have to do all of the things, and it becomes this big overwhelming problem, like that we are trying to save the world as
yeah,
individuals. And I think that we have to pull back a little bit and not worry about saving the world, but just worry about filling our own cups and making our own spaces work for us, and that will work towards saving the world because it becomes part of the collective change, right?
yeah, and just, I mean, not to get too woo-woo about it.
Get woo woo. I love the woo woo.
But just the more that energy is put into the world by people, like the more people are just thinking about it, the more likely changes to happen.
Yeah, I think so.
And like actions definitely count, but also just the cosmic energy of it, that
The collective thought pattern. Yeah,
exactly.
for sure. And
that
I think
gets spread throughout the culture.
well, and I think that's
a slow change, but it has a very large impact, and it kind of transcends individual actions.
well, and that's what I was going to say. Like it transcends it, but it also encompasses it, right? Like if we
Exactly.
start thinking in this way of that we want to make this kind of change, and we start thinking about how we could maybe be shifting towards sustainable practices and whatever it is that we're doing, those things start becoming actions. If we just start thinking about them in the first place, we can't help but do actions with them. And it's the small actions, as far as I'm concerned, that matter. So it's like, we don't have to only upcycle always, and we don't have to never ever buy anything with plastic in it, because we live in a world where that's not really a realistic goal, and then it sets us up for failure. So I think that we need to give ourselves a break, say, okay, this project I'm going to do, I'm going to only use my own stash that I've already got. And maybe you didn't do sustainable purchasing when you bought that fabric, but by not going about and buying other fabric, you are making a sustainable decision.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that we also need to remember to pull back to just the small actions that matter.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
What small actions, or what actions have you been doing in your life aside from quilting?
Aside from quilting?
Yeah, I mean, because this sustainability mindset permeates through kind of your whole life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And this year, actually, I decided this year that when I am doing my shopping, I work really hard to not buy anything that's packaged in plastic. So I will just not buy the vegetables if they're wrapped in plastic.
Right.
I don't need those. And so I go and I look for fruits and vegetables that are not in plastic. And I don't buy things that have boxes that are wrapped in plastic. So I've made a really big effort to reduce the amount of plastic that I bring into the house. I also decided this year that I was going to make my own almond milk. And which has been awesome,
right?
About every 3 or 4 days. And that was because where we live, they don't actually recycle the cardboard boxes that almond milk comes in.
The Tetra Packs.
Yeah, those Tetra Packs. They don't actually recycle them in our community garbage recycling. So I was putting those into landfill, and we were going through a couple a week, and it was just killing me that I was putting that much into the landfill. And so I decided, okay, how can I shift this so I'm not getting nearly as much plastic? So now I buy my own almond flour, and I combine it with some cashews and water, and I make our own almond milk a couple times a week.
Yeah. And
it's not been that hard. It's not that big of a burden to do. And I like having that freshly squeezed almond milk.
Yeah. You did fake complaining about it a little bit last night.
I did, but then I made it anyway.
Yeah. Who decided to do this?
Yeah. Whose idea was it to make almond milk?
But it's worth committing to, I think.
I think so too. I actually really like it. But
I think it has been cheaper, maybe.
I think so. I think it's been less expensive overall, and it's certainly less garbage. There's way less garbage.
Yeah.
So I really think now about when I'm making purchases, I really think about how much plastic I'm purchasing and where food is coming from as well. You know, when I'm buying fruits and vegetables, I'm trying to buy local as much as possible. I go to the local market and buy there instead of buying spinach from Chile, you know, which has been shipped up here, you know, or wherever it's from. And yeah, I'm just trying to have that awareness in what I purchase. And I've also committed to no longer buying any new clothing, with the exception of shoes and jackets, because the winter jackets up here kind of have to be.
Yeah, there's certain things that...
There's a couple things that I still just have to buy new, but in terms of the general pants and shirts of it all and dresses, I don't want to buy anything new anymore. So I go to reuse centers if I feel like I need a refresh in my wardrobe. I donate to those reuse centers, although right now I'm kind of hoarding my clothing because I want to try making rag rugs.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So I am kind of hanging on to my clothes so that I can start doing a rag rug for our living room. And I'm starting to make my clothing again as well, which I haven't done since I was really young. So that's been pretty exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for you to make me some clothing too.
Oh, you are you?
Yeah.
I'll see what I can do to get my own stuff finished first. I always I fall apart at the finishing stage. It's the buttons and the clasps and the hems.
Yeah.
I get everything else. I'm so excited to get it all done. And then it just kind of sits there for a long time to get those last few finishing pieces done. Anyway.
Yeah, that's why you need a mannequin, so you can just have it set up on there.
Yeah. I almost bought that mannequin last week. Maybe I'll go back and get it.
Yeah, and we've also been working on the garden on the property. I've kind of been spending a lot of my time in the last few months just working on your property. I like to call it my property, but it's your property.
I don't know if it's even my property. I'm a steward of this property at this point.
And that's what I've been really working on over the last while.
Yeah, which has been awesome.
Stewarding the property.
It's been really awesome because, we've got some big ideas around the property, and it all kind of ties back to the textile world as well for me. You know, we're growing our own food for one thing, which is awesome. I love doing that.
Definitely not enough to sustain us.
No, but it's a good supplement.
I think we're moving towards a point where that can happen in the future.
Yeah.
We're at an experimental stage.
We're still at the pilot phase. Yeah. It's like 4 years in, I think, now to the pilot phase. And then this year we started a new pilot, and I'm gonna grow some dye plants.
Yeah.
And I'll be able to harvest that in the fall for dye, natural dyes. So that's been pretty exciting. I've got indigo and woad in, and I've got a few more things going in. I've got marigolds, I've got coreopsis, and I've got black hollyhocks. And so anyways, those are all going in and hopefully going to start being able to have some yield. I don't know we'll get much this year, but we'll see.
Yeah. No, like we were saying, it's still experimental. And
yeah. And I'm learning as well, right? Because I don't have a lot of experience gardening, and I don't have a lot of experience working with natural dyes. I have some, but not a lot of experience.
And this property has never been really developed. You and I and Dad have been the only ones to develop it over the last 20 years.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there probably was
there were people on here logging and stuff.
Yeah, some settler colonial activity, and there was indigenous communities in this region, of course. Yeah, so there was that kind of activity for a long time. The Algonquin are here.
And there's an old stone foundation over by the road on the other side of the property.
Yeah, so there's definitely some evidence of early stuff, but it's not really ever been developed.
No, and not in a sustainable mindset either.
And it's also not farmland, right? It's rock and trees, and we have a pond and a swamp.
Yeah, beaver waterway.
Yeah, so it's not farmland.
True Canadian wilderness.
No. And this year we're going to try, in terms of farmland, we're just doing a tiny plot of flax.
Yeah.
So you can see whether, I don't know if we'll go for the linen or not, or go to linseed oil, or just make some rope. But again, it's experimental to just see what it takes to grow linen. And I've got a neighbor down the road. We have a neighbor, Zoe, who is a felter. She does amazing work as well. And she started the same size plot this year. So we're both going to do the experiment and talk to each other about the process and see and probably help each other in the fall when it comes to processing the fibers as well.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. So that'll be an interesting experiment.
Yeah. I would be curious about linseed oil for my woodworking purposes.
I know. Anyway, so, and the other thing in terms of what's on the property and what we're working on, I'm wanting to work towards a more collaborative and collective space where we can bring people together to have conversations around sustainable practices on the land. And so we're putting in a teepee this year.
Yeah, you got to do some repair work.
I've got some canvas that needs repair, but that's okay. And then we've been harvesting. We still have to go and finish harvesting some more cedar poles off of your grandpa's property.
Yeah.
And then we'll get that teepee up and be able to have a gathering space. So I think all of that stuff, like the podcast, even though it really is focused on sustainability and textiles, it's got me thinking about a lot of other things. And the idea of community is such an imperative part of sustainability. And even though I'm talking on the podcast, I don't have the interaction with people except for the guests, right? But in terms of the people that are listening. So I love the idea of being able to have gathering spaces.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want to get too dark about it or deep about it, but like COVID has been a huge impact on that. It's made it really difficult to build new communities.
Well, and everybody's gone to this online space of communities, which is good. I think we needed that, and COVID certainly accelerated that.
Yeah, that was maybe a benefit, actually.
Yeah. But I still think we need that one-on-one interaction.
It's been hard to figure out how to reintegrate that into our lives, I guess.
For sure. We'll get there with it.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's what we're working on it. So
Yeah.
So aside from your personal bubble, I guess, on the property here that you're trying to develop, I mean, not a bubble, but you've got your space here that you're developing and your own life, I guess. But outside of that, what opportunities has the podcast opened up in your life, I guess?
A bunch of interesting things, actually. Around the textile world, coming back to that textile conversation and finding community for that, it's really helped me realize that there's a conversation that needs to happen and can happen around sustainable textiles. And so, I decided to start an online community where people can come and we can have those conversations. And I get a little bit, I guess, on the nerdy side of things. Like I really love the data, and I love to look at reports and look at research and understand what's going on in the world. And there's a few folks in that community with me where we kind of dive into that stuff, and
Nice.
We get to have those conversations around what's going on in the world around sustainability. But it's also a place where we're just sharing our projects and what we're working on, and kind of being cheering squad for each other and saying, you're doing amazing things. Keep doing what you're doing.
Awesome. So you've kind of found your own little group.
Yeah. And it's growing. Well. Yeah, it's growing. And I think it's going to continue to grow because I think there's a need for it. I think I've been feeling like I need a space where I can connect with people who have the same kind of ideas and thoughts. And this space is now growing into being a place where we can have those conversations. And it is an online space. It's an online community, but there's this kind of awesome opportunity to share pictures and videos and links. And then we have monthly meetings where we get together on Zoom and actually have conversations with each other. And we have guest speakers coming in talking about different aspects of sustainability and sustainable practices in textiles. So some really interesting stuff, and it's young. It's a young group. We're growing, but I think that it's going to evolve and grow with the group in a way that is very organic and meets the needs of the group. So that's been an interesting project for me. And the other piece is I've realized that it is really hard to find tools that support sustainable textiles. There's lots of options around materials, finding more and more and more every day around upcycling, recycling, repurposing, and even certified materials around organics and linens and that kind of stuff. But finding thread, finding tools that are built from sustainable materials.
Yeah, not just molded plastic.
Not just molded plastics. And if they are molded plastics, let's find some that are done from recycled content. And so it's hard to find those tools and supplies. So I've started realizing that's where I'm at. I want to find those tools and supplies to support people who are doing sustainable textile art and practices, and whether that's clothing, quilting, weaving, textiles, knitting, whatever it might be. I think that having those supportive tools that we know have been made from sustainable sources, that's kind of where I'm at. And I want to go finding those, and I want to find the people that are making them, and I want to know their stories.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're looking into finding products and maybe becoming a point of sale for them? Or?
Yeah. So I'll have that on my website, and that's kind of launching at Quilt Canada. Like I have a booth there where I've got my organic threads and all the other supplies that I've gone around and found. I found this amazing guy who does woodwork, and he's made me some clappers from locally harvested woods, mostly stuff that's deadfall. So he's not going out cutting down trees to make me supplies. He's taking things that are already needing to be used and made into something else. So
a lot of it has really desirable patterns in it because of the way he harvests it, right?
Yeah.
The more gnarly wood is really good for tool handles. And
exactly.
Stuff like that you're making. So. And
it's not good for anything else, really.
Yeah.
There's some beautiful, beautiful patterns in the woods that he's found. So I've got clappers and darning eggs and darning mushrooms and seam rippers, and I'll probably get a few different tools from him as well, and keep making that sustainable tool piece. So it's exciting.
And you're selling those at Quilt Canada?
Yep. And then I'll have them on my site afterwards as well.
And when is Quilt Canada?
So it starts June 8th in Halifax, and this launches on June 8th.
Okay.
So you guys will be listening to this on the first day of Quilt Canada. So that's pretty exciting to have that going on. And just trying to find a place where the things that I've learned and the things that I know and the connections that I've been able to make can benefit other people in this community. Mm-hmm. That's what I'm after.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an awesome goal to pursue. What else does the future hold for you?
It's hard to say. I have 1,000 ideas of things that I want to try and do for this community. One of the things I'd love to figure out is a carbon accounting for textile artists, so that we can actually start to know what our carbon footprint is and how we can improve on that. I think that would be super cool. Mm-hmm. So maybe I'll get that together, and I want to do a masterclass on sustainable design work. And that's coming up over the next few months in the Hive. We'll be able to have that class so that we can explore what sustainability can look like. And then I want to also just keep finding amazing guests to come on the podcast and talk about the different things that are going on around the world, in the world of sustainability and textiles. And, I've got a dye house coming on to talk to me. They do natural dyes for garments. I've got a reuse center where they are selling reuse fabrics and materials. And I've got a couple of different makers that are coming on the podcast. So some really interesting folks that are going to be coming down the line. The textile exchange, I'm going to be talking with them. That's going to be a really interesting conversation. I'm hoping to talk with the Global Recycling Institute because they have a whole standard around recycling in textiles.
Cool. I'd love to hear about that.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to make some connections around that. So we'll see who else I can get on the podcast. It'll be interesting.
Yeah, well, the future looks relatively bright.
I think it is bright. I think there's I think it's really exciting what's going on in the quilt world right now and in the textile world. And I think that there are some amazing innovations that are happening, and we are going to see big change over the next few years. And it's going to become normalized. That's my hope, is that sustainability won't be a buzzword anymore. It will just be normal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Have that idea permeate the culture and see where the change leads to. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, me too. I hope you enjoyed that conversation that Jasper and I just had around how sustainability has impacted our lives and how the podcast has changed for me over the last year, and some of the stuff that I'm thinking about for the future with the podcast as well. I'd love to hear how sustainability has maybe come into your life and into your practice. And if the podcast has had any impact on that, I'd really love to hear about that. Send me an email, send me a message on Instagram or Facebook, and let's have a chat. I'd love to hear about that. I hope you've enjoyed this podcast episode, and there will be more to come. And I look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you so much for joining me and listening to Threads of Sustainability. I really appreciate all the support that I've received over the last year. If you're interested in supporting the podcast, you can do that in a couple of different ways. You can go over to my website and you can buy me a cuppa, and that helps keep the lights on here. You can also follow, and share the podcast with people that you know that might be interested. If you're interested in joining a community where we talk about all the different kinds of things around sustainability and share projects and share our journeys with each other, you can join the Green Stitchers Hive. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. You can send me an email. I'd love to hear from you and hear what you think about the podcast. Have a great day.